Well, hello, Facebook family. Wow, the topic today, fats, sugars, and salts. You know, there's a lot of topics that we could cover on a regular basis. You know, every week is going to be something different. We are still looking for you to provide us with input. Give us things that you want us to talk about. Submit questions about the topic of the day, whatever may be the case. But you know, today's topic is, let's just be frank, it's maddening. You know, we're going to cover something today that is not well known, that a lot of people don't understand, that is confusing, and what you're going to find out today that it's confusing for a reason. That people, in fact, are confused because that's what the industry wants us to be. So let's kind of jump in and let's kind of go into some of the facts with regard to fats, sugars, and salts. See, America is overweight. We have a problem, and our problem is we are addicted to fats, salts, and sugars. And in fact, that's exactly what the plan was to happen. You know, one of the things we're going to learn today is that a lot of us are struggling every single day with decisions, trying to make right choices, trying to figure out who has the right information, what should I listen to, what should I not listen to, who's telling the truth. And the reality is, when you look at the processed food industry, is it's all, you know, moving the shell. It's a shell game, trying to figure out if we can confuse you enough so that you can get to things that they refer to as food addiction. And that's kind of where we have gotten ourselves. See, this is where we are currently. See, in 1960 to 1962, the average male in this country weighed 166 pounds. 1990 to 1902, it's 191 pounds, and you know, women used to be 140 in the 60s. Now they're 164 in the 90s. You know, this data is 20 years old. Today's data, the average man is over 200 pounds, and the average woman over 170. We are going in the wrong direction. So let's kind of look at why. How is this happening? See, if you look at 1970, we spent $6 billion on fast food. Okay. Fast forward 30 years to 2000, it's now $110 billion. And you fast forward to 2016, and we are hovering on the $250 billion that we're spending on fast food. The convenience, the thing because we don't have time, the thing because it's easy. It's because 20% of our meals are eaten in a car. All of these issues, that the time excuse is an excuse. The problem with that excuse is it justifies a decision that's actually causing more harm than good. So it's not that you don't have time, it's that you've got to make the time. And we're going to show you some other things as to why. See, because it's not just the fast food. See, 20 years ago, you know, an average popcorn was 270 calories in 5 cups. Today, the average popcorn is a tub that's 630 calories. There's been all kinds of studies about how people in movie theaters will grab the popcorn and mindlessly eat it until it's empty, no matter the taste, because what do? We put salt on it. The average burger 20 years ago was 333 calories. Today, we're hovering almost at 600 calories. And then, of course, the world's favorite fast food, pizza. You know, a slice used to be around 500 calories. Today, it's 850 calories. The amount of fat, salt, and sugar that is inundating us is overwhelming. And in fact, when we remove one thing, like when we remove fat, one of the things that always gets added back in is the salt and or the sugar. So we're going to talk about how that works. But the main thing is we're going to focus on salts, fats, and sugars. We're going to talk about kind of an overview of what's happening. We're going to talk about how this is affecting our health. We're going to talk about how this is part of the epidemic that we have in this country. And we're also going to talk about how all of these issues, all of these problems, and all the things that we are buying into isn't necessarily our fault, because it is the industry's goal to not only confuse, but also addict. And we're going to be very specific about that issue. So let's look at what we're consuming on a daily basis. Now, this is the average consumption of food in the U.S. 25% of it comes from animal food, 12% comes from plants, and 63% is processed food. 63% is processed food filled with things like salts, sugars, and fats, and with other ingredients that the human body doesn't even recognize as a food source and knows very little what to do with it. See, the issue that we have is when we go into the grocery store, you know, the stores are full of things that look convenient, they look fast, they look healthy. Some of them even have labels on them like organic and USDA and all kinds of other things, and fruits and vegetable pictures, and they all look like they're great. And some of them even have signs on them that say fat-free, reduced fat, light, diet, and all kinds of other words designed by great marketing teams to convince us that we're making a good choice. But the reality is, when you look at this demographic alone, you know, this is the percentage that when we get to talk to medical professionals, dietitians, nutritionists, and people in the profession, and we always talk about how we always agree with all of them that we should get our nutrition from the food that we eat on a regular basis. We should really try to get all of our nutrition from the food that we eat and the water that we consume. But when you know, that's optimistic. But when you're realistic and you look at the actual percentages and you see what people are doing, and you know that 98% of people in the next 2 days are going to get a meal in a bag through a window into their car that they're going to consume into their car on their way to get to something because they don't have enough time to sit down at a table and eat it. When you look at that reality, this is what we have to understand. There are nutritional gaps that are created based upon the choices that we're making. This is a simple fact. This right here alone shows you that. 63% of our food is coming from processed foods. What does that mean? Well, that means the average American, and this is the average American here, so this isn't even the people that don't eat anything. This isn't what the food companies call the high-value consumer. Those are the people that eat a lot. The average consumer in the U.S. will eat 29 pounds of French fries, 23 pounds of pizza, 24 pounds of ice cream, 53 gallons of soda. That is more than a gallon a week. 53 gallons of soda. Use 24 pounds of artificial sweeteners, consume 2,736 pounds of salt. That is more than 47% of our recommended daily intake. And this is the average American. You want to know why we have a salt, a sugar, and a fat problem? I'm showing you the numbers. Hey, the good news is we only consume about 0.2 pounds of caffeine, and that's because it's liquefied. We have an issue in what we're consuming. These are the things. Now, the interesting thing about this is a lot of people don't understand that fats, salts, and sugars are hidden in our foods. You don't even know that they're there. They're added without your even knowledge. And if you're not paying attention, you can be duped by paying attention to label portions that you don't understand. But in reality, here's where we are. We are a fat society. We have over 74% of our population is overweight. You know, the stats said that by year 2050, 95% of us would be overweight. And I can tell you, based upon recent CDC findings, we're actually ahead of schedule. So that number is being moved up. It's no longer 2050. They don't really have the numbers yet. They're going to be publishing them soon. But the reality is we have an epidemic in this country of weight. And I'm telling you, it's because we're paying attention to what we're being told. It's causing over 300,000 deaths a year. This isn't things associated with disease and obesity. This is 300,000 deaths caused every year simply by people eating themselves to death. We have to do something. We have to change. We have to educate ourselves. Look at the obesity rate trends. You know, America likes to say that we lead the world in everything, and we definitely lead the world in this. You know, when you look at the rate of obesity and the climbing percentage and how far ahead we are of the world, you know, we are probably one of the most sophisticated societies in the history of ever. But yet when it comes to the most basic fundamental element of who we are, that which we consume, because what we consume sustains our life and extends our life, we do not understand or appreciate what we're putting in our mouth. See, it's always amazed me that people will change the oil in their car. They will do the 20,000 mile maintenance. They'll do the 40,000 mile maintenance. They'll do all of the various things to make sure that car doesn't break down. But our human bodies, what we put in them, what the stuff that we put in, the fact that we don't go to the doctor every year to get our checkups, we wait till our body breaks to do something about it. And unfortunately, what we're finding is that when it breaks, a lot of us don't get a second chance. You know, heart disease, 10% of the population, 1 in 10 people, the day they found out that they had a heart condition was the day they died. They never got a second chance. This is a leading contributor to that. We have to do something about it. So let's look at this. If you ever wondered if there was confusion, there absolutely is. See, 3 in 10 Americans, only 30% of Americans, understand that weight gain is a contributing factor of all three items of the food pyramid. All the different times: carbs, fats, proteins. they don't understand that all of these things are part of the diet. All of them contribute to where we are as a weight gain. There are people that truly believe that weight gain is caused by carbohydrates alone or by proteins alone. It's amazing that that is what we're dealing with, but the reality is people are just confused. So the whole idea behind this program, the whole idea behind fat, sugar, salts, is we're going to give you some straight information. We're going to teach you what you need to know. And more importantly, you're going to understand that ID Life truly is a health and wellness movement. We truly are here to help. We want to provide you valuable resources and tools. And in fact, we want to invite you to submit questions. You know, either during the event, during these presentations, after the presentations, we want to interact with you. We want you to submit those questions and we will respond to you. In fact, there's a question I'm going to cover later on today that somebody submitted earlier. And if there's a topic that you want us to cover, by all means, let us know what that topic is and we're going to cover that as well, because we want to make sure you're getting the information that you need, and we want to make sure that you're getting straight information without any hype, without any attempt to try and persuade you in some particular direction. We just want to give you unfiltered information. Speaking of unfiltered information, it's one thing to talk about adults, but it's a whole other thing to talk about children. See, 1/3 of our American children are overweight. You have schools all across this country that are eliminating physical education from the programs because they don't have the finances, they don't have the money, or they don't have the facilities. And it's deplorable. It absolutely is. I can't say anything else about it. But when you look at the kid issue, let's look a little bit deeper. Because see, when you actually look at the curriculum in schools, you know, a place of education, you know, they do a great job of educating us on American history and on all the other related issues of English and math. But we only spend 3.4 hours each year teaching our kids anything about nutrition. See, nutrition is taught in the home. We as parents, and I'm speaking with you, not at you here. I mean, I'm a parent as well. I'm just as convicted by this as you are. Trust me, when I was getting prepared for this presentation, it was actually making me angry when I was seeing some of the things that I myself had fallen into. We as parents cannot rely on our school district to teach kids about nutrition, because obviously that's just not happening. We have to educate ourselves so that we can educate our children, so that we can stop the cycle. See, because our kids are learning how to eat from us. So if that's the case, let's look at something else. 600,000 food items in America. 600,000 food items for us to choose from. I mean, more options than you can imagine anywhere in the world. But here's the issue. 80% have added sugar. So imagine that. You're going to the grocery store. You're looking at all the various things out there. You're looking at things that say light. You're looking at fat-free. You're looking at reduced fat. You're looking at reduced sugar. You're looking at all kinds of labels, 80% of which have added sugar in them, and you may or may not even realize it. So what does that look like? Well, we're only supposed to be consuming, according to the American Heart Association, men roughly 9 teaspoons a day, women roughly 6 teaspoons a day. This is the daily intake that is recommended. Children are recommended at 6 teaspoons a day. So just so we know what we're talking about, this is where we're supposed to be. Well, let's look at something. You know, most people, when they go to the grocery store, they know that M&Ms are full of sugar. They don't know, though, that Prego that has the wonderful pictures of fruits and vegetables and garlic and all the other things that are on it that talk about traditional, 100% natural and all those things actually has more sugar than the M&Ms. See, these are the types of things that I'm talking about specifically. These are the types of things that you need to understand. Just because something looks healthy on the front doesn't mean that it is. We need to actually take the time to read the label and understand. This is just one example. There are hundreds out there just like that. Let's look at ketchup, something that no one ever counts. You know, this time of year you have all kinds of people counting calories. All kinds of people that think a calorie-restricted diet is the best way to get their goals, not understanding that it's going to cause a yo-yo effect. And I covered that last week on the nutritional myths presentation that we did for the presentation. And if you haven't seen that, it's still live. You can still go back and take a look at it. But right here, if you look at the average ketchup bottle, and if we took out all of the other ingredients and just showed you the sugar without the other stuff in it, that's how much sugar would be in that one ketchup bottle. You know, it's one of those little things that you don't ever appreciate or understand, that that's what you're doing every time you create the ketchup pile. You know, it's funny, I live with a ketchup hound. My wife actually addicted not only herself, but also our children to ketchup. What's interesting though, if I change that bottle picture to barbecue sauce, it would double the amount of sugar. See, because as bad as this looks, barbecue sauce is twice as bad. It's just in there. And you need to understand that the reason why you like ketchup isn't necessarily because it's a tomato. You like ketchup because you are addicted to the sweet flavor that it creates. How much do we consume? On average, we are consuming in this country, each person, almost 130 pounds of sugar each year. 130 pounds of sugar each year. That is almost 1/3 a pound a day. It is crazy the amount of sugar that we are consuming, and a lot of it's hidden, but that's where we are now. You want to know why diabetes is rampant? You want to know why 1 in 3 Americans is either diabetic or pre-diabetic? This is it. This is what we're doing to ourselves, and this is the average American. See, remember, there are some people that have cut sugar completely out of their diet. There are other people that restrict their sugar because they're diabetic. There are a lot of people that are consuming way more than 130 pounds. Here's the fact that you need to know about added sugar. Refined sugar has no nutritional value, no vitamins, no minerals, no enzymes, no fiber, but has been scientifically linked to obesity, hypertension, high blood pressure, hypoglycemia, depression, headaches, fatigue, nervous tension, aching limbs, diabetes, acne, skin irritation, stiffening of arteries, and violent behavior. Not to mention the fact it also causes our children to bounce around in our cars while we're trying to drive like, ADHD bunnies. It's always amazing to me that we give our kids these sports drinks after their sporting events that are full of sugar, and then we want to yell at them because they can't calm down on the drive home. We basically are creating the problem for which we're irritated about. The issue is, though, this is an epidemic. This is something that you need to, you really need to understand. Let's look at salts for a second. See, salts is something that is also a problem. Heart disease, they say, is the #1 killer in this country. One of the things we always say at Heidi Life is actually that's not right. Diet and lifestyle is the #1 killer. Heart disease is a contributing factor of the diet and lifestyle choice, what we lovingly refer to as the hand-to-mouth disease, our hand finding our mouth way too often with the wrong thing. But that's just a reality of where we are. The adult needed daily intake of sodium is at 180 milligrams. So what you need every day is roughly 180 milligrams. According to our guidelines, what we're recommended to consume is roughly about 1,500 milligrams a day. But the average adult in this country is consuming more than 3,400 milligrams every single day of salt. I always laugh when people say, well, when I go to restaurants or when I go out to eat, I never add salt to anything, because I'm trying to make sure that my salt intake is staying way down. And I always respond the same way. You don't have to add it to anything because it's already been added for you. And if you're not paying attention to what you're consuming, trust me when I say you are on the 3,400 milligram plus, you're not closer to the 1,500 milligram side. If you really want to understand a reduction in salt, try for 3 days to cook. You personally cook every meal. Don't use cans, don't use boxes, actually use real ingredients. Cook for 3 days and don't add sugar and don't add salt to anything and watch what happens. You are going to have a headache like you have never had before. Why? Because we have an addiction to these things, and when you don't have them in your body, guess what? You go into what's called withdrawals. That was actually a question that we had from one of our listeners. They were saying, why is it when I cut sugar out of my diet, do I get massive headaches? And the answer is because you're addicted. You actually have an addiction. Your body is going through withdrawals because you no longer have it. It's just something that you should try for yourself and see if you can make that happen. So let's look at salt and what it's really doing to us. See, because what's interesting, when you look at that upper left-hand corner, what you see is 77% of the salt is coming from prepared foods, processed foods, things that are already there. That's why I say when people say I don't add it, I said you don't have to, because 12% comes from the natural source, just the item itself. 6% is added while eating and 5% while cooking. So if you're not adding food, okay, if you're not adding salt to your food, then the only thing that you're affecting is that top line 11%. 89% of it is already in there. There's nothing you can do about it because the food choices that we're making on a daily basis, remember 63% of our food consumed is processed, already has all that salt in there. 9 out of 10 Americans, we're looking at that middle column now, 9 out of 10 Americans consume too much sodium. 90% of us. And remember, I'm talking with you here. And high blood pressure. On the right-hand side, 77.9 million American adults have high blood pressure. And the scary thing is when you look at the kid fact, kids that have a high sodium diet are twice as likely to develop high blood pressure when they're adults. You know, we always talk about family histories, and a lot of times people will use the family history as the excuse of why they suffer from, well, one disease or another, because if their parents, then obviously, you know, they're going to have it because that's just their pre-dawn destiny. And one of the things we always talk about is that if you eat the way that your parents ate, then you're more than likely going to get what your parents got because you have the same genes as your parents had. But if you eat things that are different, have a different lifestyle than your parents had, change the environment in which you live, guess what? You might actually have a different outcome, even though you have a genetic predisposition. So don't use it as your excuse, use it as your motivation and make some changes. See, when you actually look at the health risks of high sodium, and now we're looking right down at the bottom, stroke, heart failure, osteoporosis, stomach cancer, kidney disease, kidney stones, enlarged heart muscle, and headaches. You know, these are the risk of a high sodium diet. And right now what we're dealing with is the average American is consuming twice as much sugar on a daily basis as they should, some 3 times as much, and we're consuming twice as much sugar than we should on a daily basis. It's no wonder why so many of us are sick. And so no wonder why so many of us are needing to visit doctors on a more regular basis. Let's talk about something that is near and dear to the ID Life heart. See, the school lunch program. And I'm going to go through something now because, you know, when you're talking about fats, salts, and sugars, it is rampant in these school lunches. But let's talk about something a little bit scarier. See, $2.68. $2.68 is how much a school district has in order to provide your child that lunch that they're getting ready to purchase. Again, this is a national average, but you have $2.68. So where does that go? When you actually look at the numbers, you know, 52% is going to go to the labor and benefits of the people that have to prepare the food. 2% goes to other, 1% supplies, 2% equipment, 5% is maintenance and repairs. 38% of that $2.68 goes to the food itself. 38%. What does that mean? That means they have exactly $1 to spend on the food. $1 to spend on the food that we provide to our kids for lunch. Remember, 1/3 of our children in this country are overweight. This is what the average meal looks like. So when you look at this, if you've ever, you know, eaten a school lunch before, you understand that what you're looking at is, you know, 5 things that are processed and 1 thing that is natural. The orange is natural in some senses because most likely it's also genetically modified, which very well may mean that it's not natural either. But at least 5 things that are processed in some way. So what does that mean? Let's look at the thing that's hidden. Let's look at the thing that no one looks at to actually start to think about when they think about calories. Let's look at the barbecue sauce. See, because the barbecue sauce has 60 calories, 310 milligrams of salt, and 10 grams of sugar by itself. See, we haven't even started the meal yet. We haven't even gone to the cookies. We haven't gone to the milk. We haven't gone to any of the other things. You know, the healthiest thing on this plate, to be honest, is probably the napkin. But when you look at the barbecue sauce, you see the number. When you add everything up, when you literally look at everything, this is where you end up. The nutritional value, 982 calories, 49% of your RDA percentage. 1,704 milligrams of salt, 74% of your daily intake. 50.88 grams of fat, or 82% of your intake, and 44 grams of sugar, 184% of the amount of sugar our children should consume in one meal. This doesn't count what they had for breakfast, what they had for a snack, whether or not they went by the vending machine that our schools have for the cookies, cupcakes, chips, and all the other things, or the soft drinks. It doesn't count any of that. This is simply what they get every single day to eat at the school lunch, and we want to know why 1/3 of our children are overweight when we feed them this and we're eliminating recess, PE, and sporting events from their daily routine. See, according to the CDC, the average child in this country spends 4 minutes a day outside. I didn't say that wrong. It's 4 minutes a day outside. Now, if you want to say that that's shocking, think about how much time you spend outside. You know, because as parents, remember, if we want our children to do anything, we have to lead by example. They won't ever do what we tell them, but they'll also repeat what we show them. So we have to make sure that we are the example, not just the, you know, the auditory dictator of what should happen. But this is something that is just appalling when you actually look at the numbers. So it's confusing. You know, what do? How do you make a change? Well, let's look at something. You go into the store, and I've just used this as an example. You go into the store, and you say, hey, I want to look at the light or fat-free version of my salad dressing versus the regular version. I'm going to make a choice here, and I'm going to go buy the fat-free version because that is the healthier choice. That's what they're telling me, because fat-free means I want less fat because I want less fat on my body. When you actually look at the nutritional label, though, things change. See, the calories are much reduced. There's 140 calories in the regular one. There's 30 calories in the real one. But when you actually look at the sugar, look at that carbs number down towards the bottom. What is it? 2 grams of carb in the regular, or 1 gram of sugar, 6 grams of carbs, 3 grams of sugars in the fat-free version. 3 times as much. Not only that, you also have, look at the sodium. So when they took the fat out, what did they do? They added salt and they added sugar. This is consistent. Anytime you are going to grab something that has fat-free, light, any of those types of things, understand or appreciate you're most likely going to be increasing your consumption of sugars and salts as a result. It is a byproduct. When they take something out, they're going to add something back in because they have to add flavor, otherwise you won't consume it. So know that if you're trying to, improve yourself for the year, you're trying to actually make the right decisions, you're trying to actually make this 2017 something special, don't get hidden in the same trap that keeps causing you to get the same results that you've gotten year after year after year. Do something different. Educate yourself on what is actually being done to you. See, if I wanted to explain the effect of fructose on the brain, it would look something like this. It would get really scientific and would go through all the different aspects of all the issues and ingredients and what it does to your hypothalamus and your limbic system and all the things of the brain. But really all I have to do is show you one thing. This is an MRI scan of somebody who had consumed cocaine and an MRI scan of somebody who has consumed sugar. And the reality is the MRI scan is relatively the same. See, because sugar has the same addictive quality as cocaine. We have to reduce our consumption of these things. We have to reduce our consumption of sugars and salts. We have to understand and appreciate that these are addictions that we have. And there's something that we are going to have to mentally decide that we're going to change, because if we keep doing these diets, if we keep listening to people saying that, hey, you have to do calorie restriction and you have to work out a lot more and you have to do all, the reality is we need to eat better. You will never out-train a bad diet. I don't care how many days you go to the gym, I don't care how much sweat that you put into it. If you have a bad diet, you will not get the results that you're looking for. And part of the process of a bad diet is too much fat, too much salt, and too much sugar. You notice I'm not saying any one of them are necessarily bad. What I'm saying is all of them in the collective amounts that we're consuming them are bad. It's like anything else in society. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And that's where we are with this. You want to see a rat study that was done? This is the addiction cycle of food versus cocaine versus heroin. You notice something. Cocaine has that gradual increase. Food has a more abrupt increase. And of course, the heroin has those spikes up and down. It's kind of the up and down. That's why people that are addicted to heroin, they always go into the next fix, because they get that super high, but then there's the super crash at the end, so they have to go to the next one. Food has a natural high. It is our pleasure point. It's the thing that we always go to, and in fact is more addictive than cocaine. So for that person that asked the question, why do I get the headache when I stop eating sugar? Here's why. You are literally getting rid of an addiction as strong as or stronger than a cocaine addiction. That's how hard it is to eliminate this stuff from our diet. We have been hooked from birth. Sugar starts when our mothers are consuming it, and then it starts in the baby formula that we provide our children, and it just continues on through the schools, and by the time they're teenagers, we have them hooked. Let's talk about bliss point. See, because this is one of those industry terms that you need to understand and appreciate. See, the bliss point is that point, it's what's called the optimal addiction point of any food. See, because there's a certain cliff when I keep adding salts and I keep adding sugars, but specifically sugars, there's a point at which that if I add just a little bit more sugar, I'm going to increase the addictive nature of the product. But if I add just a little bit more, the cliff falls off and all of a sudden it doesn't become as appealable to me. I don't like it as much. So as a result, what we have is that bliss point is that point where I have the most addictive food I can possibly get. So what does that mean? That means companies spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars determining the bliss point of every one of the foods that they have on the shelf so that they can make sure it has the highest addictive quality possible. Potato chips. What they found about the bliss point in potato chips is the more it crunches, the louder the crunch, the more you're addicted, the more you want more of them. And so much so that if you hear somebody chomping a potato chip across the room, it will actually cause your brain to trigger a response and your mouth starts to water and you can actually taste what the chip tastes like before you ever put it in your mouth. That's how addicted we are to these things. The bliss point is something you need to understand, you need to appreciate, and you need to understand this is the level to which researchers are going to make sure that you get addicted to what it is they're selling. We have a better solution. No gimmicks, no hype. It's the ID experience. It really is 3 simple steps in less than 3 minutes a day. We're going to continue to do these programs. We're going to continue to provide you the information you need so that you can make informed choices. We want you to have the tools, the resources, the information so that you can understand what makes ID Life different. So that you can understand and appreciate that we want you to help achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve. We want to support you in making sure that you're not skipping meals, that you're getting properly hydrated, that you're getting good sleep, and you have a good nutritional foundation. We want to give you those things. The 3 simple steps, morning, afternoon, and evening. Once you learn them, they become easy. This presentation, fats, salts, and sugars, I hope it made you as mad as it made me when I was getting ready for it. It is just an amazing to me what we're falling for as a society. I haven't even gotten into all the commercials and the Saturday morning cartoon commercials and all of the sweeteners and other things that we put into kids' foods and how some kids' cereals are more than 50% sugar. Yes, I said that right. Some kids' cereals that you are consuming, that the kids are consuming on a regular basis, are more than 50% sugar. They're not cereal, they're candy. And that's why they want it. But see, we were taught that cereal is actually good for you because it has certain good qualities. Be very careful. Understand what our children are consuming. More importantly, understand what you're consuming. We have some things coming up every Monday night. If you want to plug in, we have a live presentation by our CEO and founder, Logan Stout, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can plug in right here, same place you're at right now, this ID Life corporate Facebook page, that you can learn more about ID Life, what we're doing, and what this movement is all about, and why we truly are a health and wellness company that just happens to have products, not a products company that likes to talk about health and wellness when it's convenient. If you want to plug in live, I personally will be out in Fort Worth or Euless at the Texas Star Golf Course and Conference Center every Tuesday night from now until April 17th at 7 p.m. If you want to see, live, if you want to come ask questions, if you want to interact, come see me. Happy to talk, happy to get all the information that you want, and we'll stick around and answer questions as long as you have them. In addition, we have ID University coming up. The entire executive team, including Logan, are going to be up in the Baltimore area, January 27th, 28th. Plug into that. Get people there. Come learn some things. We even have our SciMed board members are going to be there. We're going to talk about some things from a science perspective. It's going to be a great event. Lots of team building and learning information, leadership training, all kinds of stuff that we want to plug into. And then, of course, we have Revolution here in Frisco, Texas, April 20th to the 23rd. The lineup of speakers is unmatched. I mean, I can't believe the people that Logan is able to line up to speak at these things. Plug into Revolution. You're going to want to be there. Jen Wiederstrom, we actually got her to commit to coming, and, she's going to stick around and meet all kinds of people. She's an amazing person. We have all kinds of people that are going to be there, and the event is going to be, beyond belief. Trust me. Next week, we're going to tackle a different topic. Next week, same time, 11:30 Central. I normally try to do these in 15 to 20 minutes. I do apologize. We ran a little bit long today, but the topic is so maddening that I wanted to make sure that you got as much information as possible. Next week, we're going to cover the American snack. We're going to talk about what the American snack has become, what it's doing to us, and more importantly, how it's sabotaging our goals. We want to make sure that, like I said, you are achieving the goals that you're setting for yourself, and more importantly, the ones that you care about and love and want to see succeed. We want to provide you the information so that you can provide it to them. So next week, we're going to cover the American snack. Again, if you have questions about the presentation today, submit them on Facebook. We'll do our best to try to answer those. If you have questions that you want to have answered during the presentation next week about the American snack or about any other topic, submit them before the event, and hey, we'll do our best to work those into the presentation to make sure we're getting those answered for you so you're getting the information that you need. And lastly, if you have a topic that you want us to cover and that you think would be interesting to people of like mind as yourself, by all means submit those as well. Again, on behalf of ID Life and myself, I want to thank you for being a part of this. Again, we're here to serve, we're here to help, we're here to provide you straight information that you can use, utilize, and not only help yourself, but help the people that you care about and you love. So until next time, thanks for being here.